Snow fell endlessly across the mountains that night. Not violently. Not dramatically. Just silently. As though the entire world itself had lowered its voice to mourn someone. Inside the enormous mountain villa hidden deep within the frozen forests of London, warmth flickered softly from golden fireplaces while doctors moved quietly through marble hallways. Outside, armed guards stood beneath the storm. Inside, a broken boy slept between life and emotional ruin. And beside him sat the girl who had loved him long before the world taught him pain. Her name was Zenith. And this was the beginning of Ethan's second life. Chapter 12, The Girl He Once Protected. Open book. Every powerful person has a memory capable of making them weak. For Zenith, that memory was Ethan. The helicopter disappeared into the mountains long before sunrise. Below the endless storm clouds, Moscow continued moving like nothing had happened. Cars crossed wet streets. People drank coffee before work. Students complained about examinations. And somewhere inside Civic Hospital, doctors quietly erased records while security guards avoided eye contact with one another. Nobody wanted involvement. Nobody wanted responsibility. Because everyone understood something terrifying had happened that night. A patient had vanished. An illegal surgery had failed. And powerful people were now involved. But far away from that chaos, Ethan remained unconscious inside Zenith's private mountain estate. The villa stood high above snow-covered forests where silence swallowed nearly every sound except the wind. It looked less like a home and more like a hidden kingdom. Black vehicles guarded the entrance. Security cameras watched every corner. Armed personnel patrolled the perimeter carefully. Yet despite all that cold power surrounding the estate, Ethan's room felt strangely warm. Soft firelight flickered beside the bed. Fresh medicine rested neatly across a nearby table. The best doctors available in Europe moved carefully through the room while specialized caretakers monitored his condition every hour. Zenith personally ordered everything. The best nutrition. The best treatment. The safest environment possible. Nothing was allowed to fail. Because for Zenith, Ethan was not merely someone important. He was the boy who once saved her from a childhood she had almost died inside. That night, while Ethan slept beneath heavy blankets, Zenith sat quietly beside him. She looked calm externally. But internally, memories returned one after another. Painfully clear. Like old wounds reopening. She remembered rain. A small broken neighborhood. And a frightened little girl hiding bruises beneath oversized sleeves. That little girl had been her. Back then, her father drank constantly. Whenever alcohol entered the house, fear followed behind it. Broken glass. Shouting. Violence. Her mother cried often. Servants ignored everything. And young Zenith slowly learned how to remain silent. But there had been one person who never ignored her suffering. Ethan. Even as a child, he somehow noticed pain hidden inside others. Zenith still remembered the first time he handed her food. She had been sitting alone behind a local convenience store after another terrible night at home. Her hands trembled from hunger. Then suddenly, someone sat beside her. A young boy holding warm bread. "You should eat before it gets cold," Ethan had said awkwardly. No pity. No judgment. Just kindness. Zenith had stared at him suspiciously. Nobody helped people for free. At least not in her experience. But Ethan simply smiled. And somehow, she accepted the bread. That became the beginning. After that day, Ethan quietly started appearing whenever her life became unbearable. If her father hurt her, Ethan found ways to distract her. If she cried, he stayed beside her silently. If she skipped meals, he somehow shared his own food despite barely having enough himself. Zenith remembered another moment vividly. Summer. Bright sunlight. A tree near the river. She had climbed too high trying to prove she wasn't weak. Then slipped. The fall shattered skin across her legs and twisted her ankle badly. She still remembered screaming from pain. And Ethan arriving seconds later. Without hesitation, he lifted her onto his back. Then ran. 5 kilometers. Straight toward the nearest clinic. Even when exhausted. Even when breathing painfully. He never stopped carrying her. That memory alone stayed with Zenith for years. Because nobody had ever carried her before. Nobody had ever treated her like someone precious. Later, during cold winter evenings, they often sat together near the old riverside bridge. They spoke about impossible dreams. Ethan wanted a peaceful life. A family. A future where nobody he loved suffered again. Zenith simply wanted safety. And somewhere between those conversations, 2 lonely children made a promise. We'll always stay together. At the time, they truly believed it. But life destroys promises made by children far too easily. Zenith's mother eventually discovered where they had been hiding. Unlike her abusive father, her mother belonged to an extremely wealthy cane export family based in London. Old money. Political influence. International connections. After years of enduring humiliation from her husband, Zenith's mother finally decided to leave. And because Zenith was the sole heir to the family fortune, she was taken away immediately. Zenith still remembered that final day. The black luxury vehicles. The security escorts. The packed luggage. And Ethan running. Running desperately through the streets after hearing she was leaving. By the time he reached the airport road, he could barely breathe. His face was red from exhaustion. But he still held something tightly in his hands. A handmade hairpin. Poorly crafted. Slightly crooked. Yet made carefully. Especially for her. Wait for me, Ethan had said breathlessly. Zenith had cried harder than ever before. Then the cars left. And childhood ended. Years passed. Zenith transformed completely. London turned her into someone dangerous. She studied relentlessly. Learned business. Learned negotiation. Learned how power truly worked. By 25, she had already built an empire independent from her family. Cold efficiency became her armor. People feared her intelligence. Respected her influence. And obeyed her without question. But despite everything she gained, she never forgot Ethan. Never. When she finally located him years later during university, her heartbeat had genuinely trembled for the first time in forever. But reality disappointed her quickly. Ethan already loved someone. Clara. Zenith still remembered the small forced smile she maintained while meeting Clara politely. She remembered watching Ethan look at another woman with warmth once reserved for her. It hurt. More than she expected. But she never interfered. Because Ethan looked happy. And after everything he endured growing up, Zenith convinced herself his happiness mattered more than her feelings. So they remained friends. Close enough to stay connected. Far enough to remain safe. Occasionally they called each other. Occasionally exchanged messages. Sometimes Ethan spoke about his grandmother. Sometimes Zenith quietly helped without him realizing. And sometimes she simply listened to his exhausted voice late at night while he studied and worked endlessly. She knew about the cancer. She offered financial support multiple times. But Ethan always refused gently. "Clara's helping already," he once said. "She says it's her responsibility too." Zenith remembered smiling quietly after hearing that. At the time, she respected Clara deeply for staying beside Ethan. She truly believed Clara loved him sincerely. Now that memory disgusted her. Zenith slowly looked toward Ethan sleeping beside her. His face looked thinner than before. More tired. As though betrayal itself had physically consumed him. A quiet anger settled inside her chest. Not loud anger. Not explosive. Cold anger. The most dangerous kind. Meanwhile in Moscow, Clara's world slowly began collapsing. The moment news spread regarding Ethan's disappearance from Civic Hospital, confusion erupted everywhere. Doctors whispered nervously. Investigators arrived. Administrative staff panicked. And Clara stood frozen in the middle of the corridor. "What do you mean he disappeared?" she asked weakly. Nobody answered clearly. Then someone mentioned another detail. His grandmother's body disappeared too. Clara's blood turned cold. Beside her, Leo's expression changed instantly. Only for a second. But Clara noticed. Fear. Real fear. Leo immediately hid it behind concern. "This is bad," he muttered. But internally, panic spread rapidly. Because if Ethan survived, everything could be exposed. Forged documents. Illegal surgery. The sedation. All of it. From that moment forward, Clara desperately tried finding Ethan. She hired private investigators. Used family connections. Contacted hospitals. Security agencies. Travel companies. Nothing. Every trail vanished. Every investigation ended with the same response. Someone powerful is blocking access. That sentence terrified her. Because Ethan had never possessed that kind of influence. So who protected him now? At night, Clara sat alone inside Ethan's empty apartment. Silence filled the rooms. And for the first time in months, she truly looked around carefully. The organized books. The labeled medicine boxes. The handwritten reminders telling her to eat properly. The herbal tea Ethan always prepared whenever she became sick. The blankets he warmed before she slept. Suddenly memories attacked her from every direction. Ethan quietly cooking while exhausted. Ethan massaging her shoulders during headaches. Ethan carrying groceries after long lectures. Ethan asking softly, "Does your stomach still hurt?" Clara covered her face suddenly. Because she realized something horrifying. She missed him. Not casually. Not temporarily. Deeply. Painfully. Her chest physically hurt from missing him. And the worst part? She had destroyed him herself. Her phone vibrated suddenly. Leo. For several seconds, Clara stared silently. Then answered. Leo's weak voice emerged immediately. "Clara, my stomach hurts badly. I need you." Normally she would have rushed toward him instantly. Normally guilt would control her. But tonight something felt different. Cold. Tiring. "See a doctor," Clara replied flatly. Then disconnected. Silence followed. And suddenly memories returned violently. The nights she ignored Ethan's calls. The excuses. The lies. The way she abandoned him emotionally while running toward Leo repeatedly. Then another realization struck her. She was pregnant. With Leo's child. Clara's entire body became cold. What if Ethan knew? No. No. Ethan loved her too much. He would forgive her. He always forgave her. That thought became the only thing keeping her stable. Because Clara still didn't understand something crucial. The boy who loved her unconditionally had already died emotionally inside that hospital corridor. The moment he heard her voice choosing another man. Back at the mountain estate, Ethan finally regained consciousness completely. Pain greeted him immediately. Not physical pain. Emotional emptiness. Zenith entered quietly carrying medicine. Their eyes met. For several moments neither spoke. Then Ethan whispered. "Where's grandmother?" Zenith lowered her gaze slightly. "She's in the memorial room." Ethan's breathing trembled. Zenith stepped closer carefully. "It's time to say goodbye." Those words shattered whatever emotional strength Ethan still possessed. The next morning, snow covered the mountains heavily. Zenith personally accompanied Ethan toward the private funeral grounds behind the estate. He sat silently in a wheelchair while caretakers moved carefully through the snow. At the center of the memorial hall rested his grandmother peacefully. White flowers surrounded her. Candles flickered softly. Everything looked calm. Too calm. Ethan stared silently. Then tears finally escaped. Not loud crying. Not dramatic grief. Just silent tears falling endlessly from someone completely exhausted by pain. Zenith stood beside him quietly. Then gently placed her hand on his shoulder. No speeches. No meaningless comfort. Just presence. Sometimes that hurts less. After several minutes, Zenith slowly removed a folded letter from her coat pocket. "The nurses found this beneath her pillow," she whispered. Ethan's trembling fingers opened the paper carefully. And as he read his grandmother's final words, his vision blurred completely. Every sentence felt like love wrapped around grief. Every line felt like she still understood him perfectly. By the final sentence, Ethan lowered his head and cried silently. Zenith remained beside him the entire time. Because she knew. Nobody in the world had loved Ethan more purely than that old woman. And now she was gone. 1 week passed. Gradually Ethan recovered physically. His appetite returned slightly. His fevers disappeared. The dark circles beneath his eyes faded little by little. But emotionally, he remained distant. He avoided discussing Clara. Avoided discussing Moscow. Avoided discussing betrayal entirely. Zenith never forced him. Instead, she cared for him patiently. Every morning breakfast appeared exactly according to his preferences. His clothes were prepared carefully. Medication organized neatly. The library warmed before he entered. At night, if nightmares woke him, tea already waited nearby. Ethan noticed everything. And slowly, he realized something dangerous. Zenith still loved him. Deeply. Probably for years. But Ethan could not respond. Not yet. His heart still carried too many wounds. One stormy night, while rain struck the windows violently, Ethan finally spoke. Everything. The earthquake. Leo. The manipulation. Clara's betrayal. The illegal surgery. The organ harvesting plan. Zenith listened silently. Though internally, rage tightened painfully inside her chest. When Ethan finally described hearing Clara agree to sedate him, Zenith's fingers curled tightly around the glass in her hand. But she controlled herself. Because Ethan needed peace. Not revenge. Still, the moment he finished speaking, Zenith made a silent promise. Nobody would ever hurt him again. Not while she lived. The next morning, Zenith entered her company headquarters. The atmosphere changed instantly. Executives straightened nervously. Assistants avoided mistakes. Because everyone recognized her expression. Cold fury. Zenith stopped beside the massive conference table. Then spoke calmly. "I want every piece of evidence connected to Leo Markov exposed anonymously." The assistants nodded immediately. "Release the earthquake rescue footage publicly." Another nod. And within 5 days. Her eyes darkened. "I want Clara Voss's family business destroyed financially." Silence filled the room. Nobody questioned her. Because everyone understood. Someone had hurt the one person Zenith truly cared about. And now consequences had arrived. That same night, Clara sat alone drinking heavily inside her apartment. Rain struck the windows. Alcohol burned down her throat. But nothing numbed the guilt. Then her phone vibrated. Unknown sender. She opened the message absent-mindedly. And froze. Video footage played. The earthquake. Collapsed buildings. Smoke. Screaming. Then Ethan appeared. Bleeding. Digging desperately through debris with bare hands. Calling her name. Crying while pulling concrete apart. Saving her. Clara's entire body went numb. Leo never saved her. Ethan did. The next files arrived immediately. Forgery evidence. Hospital documents. Leo's debts. Hidden recordings. Everything. Clara dropped the phone. Then suddenly stood. Pure rage exploded inside her. She drove straight toward the hospital. Storm rain soaked the streets while her heartbeat pounded violently. The moment she entered Leo's room, he looked up nervously. But before he could speak, Clara grabbed his throat. Hard. Leo choked in shock. "Who saved me?" Clara screamed. Leo immediately understood. Everything was exposed. Still, he tried manipulating her. "Clara, listen. I love you, our baby." Slap. The sound echoed brutally across the room. Clara stared at him with horror and disgust. Leo slowly touched his bleeding lip. Then suddenly smirked. "You're acting innocent now," he whispered cruelly. "You slept with me willingly for months." Clara's face lost all color. Because it was true. No manipulation could erase that truth. She covered her mouth shakily. Meanwhile Leo laughed quietly. "You're disgusting too, Clara." Those words shattered something inside her completely. Moments later, Clara ordered security guards coldly. "Take him away." Leo's smile vanished instantly. "Wait, Clara. Lock him underground." Panic finally appeared. Because Leo suddenly realized Clara's family influence extended much further than he imagined. The following morning Clara boarded a flight toward London. For the entire journey she barely moved. Her thoughts repeated only one thing. Ethan. Ethan cooking. Ethan smiling. Ethan protecting. Ethan bleeding beneath earthquake ruins. And she destroyed him. The moment she learned who currently protected Ethan, her anxiety worsened. Zenith. One of the most powerful businesswomen in Europe. Beautiful. Intelligent. Dangerously influential. And apparently connected deeply to Ethan. Clara's chest tightened painfully. By the time she reached Zenith's mountain estate, night had already fallen. Snow drifted heavily across the gates. Security immediately blocked her. "No visitors allowed." "Please," Clara begged. Nobody moved. She shouted Ethan's name repeatedly. Still nothing. Then suddenly she saw him. Standing weakly on a distant balcony. Their eyes met. For one terrible moment, Clara saw exactly what she had done. Ethan looked at her. Then suddenly turned aside and vomited. As though even seeing her physically disgusted him. Clara's heart shattered. Before she could move, another figure appeared behind him. Zenith. She calmly supported Ethan and guided him back inside protectively. The doors closed. And Clara remained outside alone beneath freezing rain. She stayed there all night. Nobody came. By morning, her body finally collapsed. When Clara opened her eyes again, she lay inside a hospital bed. Her vision blurred weakly. Then she saw them. Ethan. And Zenith standing beside him. Clara's lips trembled. She wanted to ask if he was okay. Wanted to apologize. Wanted to beg. But no words came. Finally, she whispered. "Ethan. I'm sorry." Ethan looked at her quietly. No warmth remained. Only cold exhaustion. Then he spoke. "You're dirty, Clara." The sentence hit harder than screaming ever could. Clara felt physically unable to breathe. Still, she gathered every remaining piece of courage. "I love you," she whispered desperately. "Please, give me one more chance." Ethan stared silently for several seconds. Then answered softly. "The boy who loved you died inside that hospital." His voice remained calm. Which somehow hurt even more. It was a horrifying death. Clara broke completely. Because in that moment, she finally understood. Their relationship truly ended. Not temporarily. Forever. Ethan turned away quietly. Zenith followed beside him. And for the first time in many months, Ethan felt strangely lighter. As though a painful chain finally snapped apart. When he looked toward Zenith afterward, their eyes met silently. No confession happened. No dramatic moment. Just quiet understanding. The beginning of something peaceful. Meanwhile, Clara's life continued collapsing. Her family business lost investors rapidly. Government investigations exposed illegal hospital operations. Company assets froze. Stock prices crashed. Media pressure exploded everywhere. Her father aged visibly within days. One evening, Clara finally confessed everything. Leo. Ethan. The betrayal. The pregnancy. Her father stared silently. Then tears filled his eyes. "Do you understand who you offended?" he whispered. Clara lowered her head weakly. Before she could answer, dizziness overwhelmed her suddenly. Darkness swallowed her consciousness. At the hospital, doctors confirmed another tragedy. Miscarriage. Clara simply stared at the ceiling afterward. Empty. She no longer cried. Because some pain moves beyond tears. Far beneath the old hospital facility, Leo slowly lost his mind. The underground cell remained dark constantly. Cold walls. No comfort. No luxury. No manipulation left. Days passed. Then weeks. Food stopped arriving regularly. Desperation transformed him into something pitiful. He ate insects. Licked moisture from walls. Screamed endlessly into darkness. Nobody answered. The same cruelty he once used against others finally consumed him completely. 5 days later. Leo died alone. Unmourned. Forgotten. His ending matched the life he created. Months passed quietly afterward. Zenith never pressured Ethan emotionally. She simply remained beside him consistently. Patiently. Warmly. And little by little, Ethan healed. Not perfectly. But genuinely. One spring morning, while sunlight entered the villa softly, Ethan finally smiled naturally again. Zenith noticed immediately. And for the first time in years, she allowed herself hope. Eventually, Ethan spoke first. "Thank you for waiting for me." Zenith's eyes trembled slightly. Then she smiled. The kind of smile created by years of silent love finally reaching peace. Clara's father contacted Ethan once. Only once. His voice sounded broken. "Please, give Clara another chance." Ethan remained silent briefly. Then answered calmly. This was her choice. No anger. No hatred. Just truth. After the call ended, Ethan still quietly helped Clara's parents survive financially. Not because of Clara. Because they personally never harmed him. Zenith respected that deeply. Eventually Clara's family retained only a tiny courier company operating beneath Zenith's corporation. A small life. Far from luxury. Far from pride. As for Clara herself, she chose to live quietly inside an old age care facility. Perhaps out of guilt. Perhaps punishment. Perhaps both. Sometimes she helped elderly patients eat. Sometimes she sat silently beside lonely people during nights. And occasionally, she still looked toward the mountains wondering how life could have been different. But regret cannot resurrect destroyed trust. Years later, Ethan stood once more beside a warm fireplace. Except now, Zenith rested beside him peacefully while their young child slept nearby. The villa no longer felt cold. It felt like home. Real home. Peaceful. Safe. The kind of life Ethan once believed he would never deserve. One snowy evening, he stepped onto the balcony alone. Cold wind moved gently through the mountains. For several moments, Ethan simply watched the snow fall quietly. Then smiled faintly. His past no longer felt like open wounds. Only distant scars. Painful memories. But survivable. Behind him, Zenith wrapped a blanket around his shoulders gently. "You'll catch cold," she whispered. Ethan looked toward her. Then toward their sleeping child. And finally understood his grandmother's final lesson completely. Love should feel like peace. Not fear. And after surviving betrayal, grief, loneliness, and emotional destruction,